a shy woman who turns into a psychopath after being raped and takes revenge by cutting off her abuser's penises. The film opens by showing a shy and quiet woman named Julia who is traveling to the house of her longtime friend, Bobby. Upon arriving, Bobby warmly welcomes Julia, immediately gets her a drink, and the two of them toast together.
Can I take your coat? Is there anything I can get you? 1807 Hide Seek.
Slowly, Julia begins to sip the drink Bobby gave her, and not long after, she starts to feel something strange happening to her body. Her vision suddenly becomes blurry, and she gradually begins to lose consciousness. It turns out that the drink Bobby gave her had been laced with a sedative. Bobby had planned to sexually assault Julia together with his 3 friends, Adam, Scott, and Matt. The most eager participants in the assault were Bobby, Scott, and Matt, while Adam felt deeply uncomfortable seeing Julia being treated that way. At first, Adam intended to stop his friends from behaving inappropriately toward Julia, but because he was alone while the others were 3 against him, he did not dare to oppose them. In the end, Adam could only watch from a distance as Julia was sexually assaulted by his friends. After everyone had finished forcing themselves on Julia, Bobby then forced Adam to assault her as well. Adam was threatened with death if he refused to obey Bobby's order. After Adam finished having sex with Julia under coercion, Julia was sedated again so that she would remain unconscious for a longer time. Her body was then dumped near a river by them. When Julia finally regained consciousness, her body was covered in blood, and she immediately made her way back to her place. She was in a state of severe shock after being treated that way by her own friends. From that moment on, Julia suffered deep trauma. She became increasingly withdrawn and refused to speak to anyone. Every day, Julia would visit a bar just to drink alcohol, and she no longer had the motivation to go to work, choosing to skip work repeatedly. Julia actually worked at a plastic surgery clinic, and a doctor named Dr. Lin became confused as to why Julia had not come to work for several days. One day, while Julia was at a bar, she overheard a conversation from a group of young women, one of whom turned out to be a survivor of sexual assault who had already recovered from her trauma. The woman mentioned a therapist named Dr. Tom who handled cases involving survivors of sexual assault. Having listened to their conversation, Julia followed the woman when she went to the restroom. Inside the restroom, Julia began asking her about the therapy she mentioned. At first, the woman did not want to talk about it, but after hearing that Julia herself was a victim of sexual assault, she finally told Julia about the therapist who had helped her overcome her trauma.
Therapy.
After returning home from the bar, Julia was approached by a woman named Sadie. Before handing Julia a piece of paper containing Dr. Tom's address, Sadie asked whether Julia had reported the men who assaulted her to the police. Julia replied that she had never reported them. Sadie then told Julia that she herself had once been a victim of sexual assault, and that after joining Dr. Tom's therapy, she was finally able to overcome her past trauma. Sadie then encouraged Julia to visit Dr. Tom when she was not busy. The next morning, Julia returns to work after taking a long leave of absence. She gives Dr. Lin the excuse that she had family problems that needed to be resolved. Throughout her workday, Julia keeps thinking about the therapy that might help her carry out an act of revenge against the men who sexually assaulted her. When she recalls what happened to her, Julia cannot accept that she was raped by those men. After thinking about it for a long time, she finally decides to go to the address of Dr. Tom listed on the business card. Upon arriving, Julia expresses her intention to take revenge on the 3 men who raped her so that they will suffer for the rest of their lives. Dr. Tom makes it clear that if Julia is only determined to seek revenge without any intention of healing her trauma, then he will not help her carry out her revenge. Dr. Tom explains that he will only assist Julia in taking revenge according to strict procedures and rules. At first, Julia wants the men who tortured her to suffer as soon as possible, but Dr. Tom cannot grant her wish immediately because targeting someone requires time and a careful process, so everything can proceed smoothly and in an organized manner. Julia will also be taught several methods to seduce predatory men and then punish them by cutting off their penis. One more important rule that Julia must understand is that if she wants to undergo the therapy, she is not allowed to take independent action, as there will be consequences for doing so. Every action Julia wants to take must receive approval from Tom. Julia agrees to undergo the therapy in order to achieve her revenge and then immediately returns home.
Julia.
When she arrives, Sadie is already there and begins changing Julia's appearance by removing her glasses and dressing her up to make her look beautiful. Sadie comes with the intention of giving Julia training on how to properly and effectively seduce men. In addition to seduction, Sadie also teaches Julia how to fight back against men in a short amount of time. Sadie then takes Julia to a bar to look for a target. There, Sadie directly demonstrates in front of Julia how to deal with men who try to take advantage of women. Sadie appears highly skilled at seducing men, and when the man lets his guard down, she brutally beats him, although she does not cut off his penis since it is only a demonstration. After showing everything to Julia, Sadie takes her to another bar where Julia will be tested on seducing a man and subduing him quickly. In the first attempt, Julia makes mistakes that cause several men to ignore her. Sadie emphasizes that Julia must not speak to the target and must instead show her elegance as a woman so that men will notice her. On the second attempt, Julia becomes more confident in her appearance and successfully attracts a man. Julia and the man leave the bar and begin kissing. Fortunately, Sadie follows them out while bringing along the man's partner. Sadie is pleased that Julia is finally able to seduce a man. The next stage Julia must complete is cutting off a predatory man's penis. Julia goes to another bar to look for a man who is easy to tempt, and eventually one man is lured by her beauty. The man follows Julia wherever she goes until they arrive at Julia's apartment. Intentionally trapping him, Julia begins removing her clothes to arouse him. While Julia is having sex with the man, Sadie and other women from Dr. Tom's therapy group suddenly appear from behind and hand Julia a knife. The man's penis is cut off so that he can never have sex again. Julia feels satisfied with what she has done, and she even begins to feel addicted to harming men, to the point that she recklessly kills and cuts off a man's penis purely for her own pleasure. Julia's first murder transforms her into a psychopath. Julia can no longer restrain the urge within herself that constantly drives her to commit murder. All of the killings she carries out remain unknown to both Sadie and Dr. Tom. After murdering a man, Julia suddenly receives a phone call from Adam. Adam calls Julia to apologize, feeling guilty because he was unable to stop his friends from raping her. Wanting to apologize in person, Adam asks Julia to meet him the following night at a cafe. After that, Julia returns home. Sadie, who happens to be watching the front door, becomes confused when she notices Julia's clothes covered in blood. Julia explains that she works at a surgical clinic and that the blood belongs to a patient. Hearing this excuse, Sadie does not become suspicious and believes Julia's words.
Forgive me. You can't go against this man.
The next morning, Julia leaves a note on Sadie's bed saying that she has gone to work. As Sadie is about to take a shower, she hears news about the murder of a man whose body was found near a bridge the previous night. The man had been stabbed around 99 times, and strangely, his penis had been cut off. Sadie suddenly remembers that Julia's clothes were covered in blood the night before. Growing worried about Julia's condition, Sadie quickly tries to find out where Julia is. Meanwhile, Julia goes to her workplace to collect sharp objects, sedatives, clothes, and all the equipment she needs to take revenge on the men who raped her. After completing her preparations, Julia heads to the cafe to meet Adam.
I had to find you.
There, Adam apologizes to Julia for being unable to do anything while his friends raped her in front of him, admitting that he could only watch from a distance. Adam explains that he never wanted to rape Julia, but because he was threatened by Bobby, he was forced to do so. In order for his apology to be accepted, Adam offers to do anything Julia commands. Hearing this, Julia tells Adam to take her to meet Scott and Matt. Adam immediately agrees and brings Julia to a bar where Scott and Matt usually hang out. Before going to the bar, Julia kisses Adam as a gesture of thanks for taking her to meet Scott and Matt. Unbeknownst to Julia, their meeting is witnessed directly by Sadie, who assumes that the man will become Julia's next murder target. Because Julia has started acting on her own and has violated the rules, Sadie immediately reports the situation to Dr. Tom, who instructs Sadie to go to Julia's apartment and gather information about her whereabouts.
Adam, with him and my patient.
Upon arriving at the bar, Julia seduces Scott and Matt, and after successfully luring them, she invites them to go to Adam's house, suggesting that they will have sex there. Once they arrive at Adam's house, Julia begins preparing drinks for them, secretly adding sedatives to make them collapse and easier for her to take revenge. After drinking the beverages Julia prepared, Scott and Matt gradually lose consciousness. It turns out that Julia also drugs Adam. Even though Adam did not want to rape Julia and only watched while she was assaulted, Julia still decides to punish him. Julia first cuts off Scott's and Matt's penises so they will never be able to have sex again, while Adam, who merely watched her being raped, is punished differently as Julia gouges out both of his eyes. After finishing her revenge on Scott, Matt, and Adam, Julia rushes to Bobby's apartment to carry out the final act of revenge. Meanwhile, Sadie fails to find any information about Julia's whereabouts until she eventually discovers a piece of paper containing Adam's address. Sadie quickly heads to Adam's house and is horrified to find Scott, Matt, and Adam lying there, covered in blood. Sadie asks them where Julia has gone, and they tell her that Julia is heading to Bobby's apartment. At the same time, Julia has just arrived at Bobby's apartment and is shocked to find Bobby already dead, with his penis cut off. Suddenly, someone strikes Julia hard from behind, knocking her unconscious. Julia later wakes up at Dr. Tom's place, feeling weak after being sedated by him. Tom explains that Julia has violated the rules of the therapy by acting on her own in carrying out revenge, and because of this violation, she must now face severe punishment. Dr. Tom intends to punish Julia by cutting off her legs, arms, and tongue. Tom then confides in Julia about his past, revealing that he once enjoyed dressing up his younger sister, but his father considered this behavior deviant and brutally cut off Tom's penis. Because of this traumatic past, Tom decided to become a therapist who shelters women who have been raped, treating them as his own daughters. That is why he punishes rapists by cutting off their penises. Tom reminds Julia that he had warned her not to act recklessly and to patiently wait for the right moment so their actions would be carried out smoothly and without attracting police suspicion. Julia's impulsive murder of a man near the bridge caused the police to patrol every corner of the city in search of the killer. After a long explanation, Dr. Tom prepares to cut off Julia's tongue so she will not repeat her mistakes. Just as Tom is about to do so, one of his men informs him that Sadie is downstairs. But unbeknownst to them, Sadie has already killed all of Tom's men. Realizing his subordinates are gone, Tom begins searching for the cause while slowly advancing with a weapon, eventually finding Sadie lying on the ground. Julia, still weakened by the sedative, struggles with all her strength to move her leg to help Sadie and manages to stab Tom, although she is shot by him in return. Despite being wounded, Julia manages to get back up and decapitates Tom. After everyone is dead, including Tom, Sadie invites Julia to leave together and start a new life. It is revealed that Sadie has romantic feelings for Julia, as since being raped, Sadie has been unable to trust men and wishes to pursue a relationship with Julia instead. However, Julia takes Tom's gun and shoots Sadie, killing her. After murdering Sadie, Julia plans to begin a new life free from trauma. In the end, Julia feels relieved, having finally taken revenge on Bobby, Scott, Matt, and Adam, the men who raped her, and the story comes to an end.